Hey everyone, hello, and thank you for joining the Thrive and EDU community tonight. I am Rachelle and Dr. I am excited to have this conversation with a good friend of mine. So I will introduce myself. I'm Rachelle. I'm an educator, author, attorney. I do a lot of speaking. I love connecting with educators from all around the world. And I have a podcast, and sometimes I'm talking to myself. And my partner tonight is a very good friend of mine, and I'm going to toss it over to you, Dr. Will, to give an introduction about yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for the invitation. Dr. Will, the district instructional technologist with the K through 12 public school district, consultant, author of The Entrepreneur, and I have my own podcast, The Dr. Will Show. Holding up the book. The Dr. Will Show podcast, which is a business podcast for educators who want to turn what they know for what they are known for.
Yes. Was that a surprise? I got a lot of surprises here, just hanging them up. But yes, here's the book, and you have to see what came before the book. And it's phenomenal. So for anybody that's out there and you're doing the work and you're trying to think about how to start your own business, I like to say leveraging your teacher talent, building teacher capacity. Everybody has something to offer. This is definitely the book for you. I did not intentionally plant this here. I have on my side some books that I refer to often, and that is just one of the books that I have there. You might see some others popping up here during our conversation. So tonight, wherever you're joining us from around the world, if it's, you're in the future, welcome. We're happy to have you here. But we're going to talk about embracing your superpower, because all educators, everybody has some superpower. And sometimes you may not be aware of it. I don't know if that's just my perception. Dr. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what normally comes to us naturally, we just don't think of it as anything special because we just do it.
Right. And that's something like even thinking about being in education and different things that you think about. I will say, I always give an example. Somebody said to me probably 7 years ago, what are you doing for SEL? And I said, well, what are you doing? Because when they said SEL, I really, in transparency, I was not sure what they were referring to. And when they gave me some examples, I went, oh, yeah, I'm doing that too. And there are things that we don't notice about ourselves sometimes that others will point out about us. And that actually could be our superpower. And so now, anybody that's joining in, we want to hear from you. So whether you are on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or X, wherever you're joining us from, please put in comments, please put in questions, because this is a conversation that we want to learn from you as well. And I'll probably be asking Dr. Will a lot of questions, but that's okay. I will be answering them too. So first question that is up is, what is the first strength, gift, or quality that comes to mind when you think about yourself and the work that you do? And how did you discover it? And that goes out to Dr. Will, to myself, to anybody that's watching right now. Think about something that you do in your work, even if you're not in education, because we are broadcasting to anybody on all of those platforms. But how did you discover that you have something that's unique, something that you leverage, something that you enjoy, that you share with others? And Dr. Will, if you don't want to answer first, I will answer this and give you some time. I'm good at that. Our good friend, Dr. Sarah Thomas, I always say, I will be your backup lip syncer, your backup dancer. I'll do the wait time. If nobody answers, I will come in and chime in with something. So would you like to, phone a friend right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I did not realize this about myself. And it was a couple of years, well, more than a couple of years ago. It was probably in talking about like you with the entrepreneur and building your business and your brand. Somebody said to me probably 9 years ago now, you are an educator, you present at conferences, you understand technology. Why don't you do more with consulting? And I had done some consulting on the side, just very small projects. And I said, well, I didn't think about it. And I said, well, why do you say that? And they said, because you understand the educator needs, the student needs, administrator concerns, you understand the technology, and you can kind of facilitate conversations. You are a connector. And I was like, okay. I thought about it for a little bit, and I was talking to Dr. Rod Berger, who many people you may know him, but I had a podcast with him a couple weeks ago, and I was telling you, if you want to go back and get a good laugh, I was telling him that when I decided to leverage that superpower that somebody identified for me, I called it my Jerry Maguire meets the Hangover movie transition, because I remember being at FETC, which is a great conference held in Orlando most often in January. And I remember going down the escalators, kind of similar to in the movie, if you've seen it, The Hangover, where they're going down the escalators, seeing the edtech startups, and just so interested in their messaging, why they created what they did, getting to learn about them. And so it was kind of the help me help you kind of thing. So I meshed those together. And the first company that I worked with, that was years ago, has had tremendous success. I would like to take some of the credit for it, but I mean, it was all of them. I was just the connecting piece, storyteller, and I love doing that. I love bringing people together. And so it took somebody pointing that out to me to make me realize, oh, maybe this is something that I can do. So I like telling other people's stories. I like facilitating conversations. And I guess that is my superpower. So, Dr. Will, I'm going to throw it over to you. I think I talked enough about that. So give you enough time. And anybody that's joining you, we want to hear from you too. So, Dr. Will, on to you.
I like, and I'm thinking about this, all kinds of things probably in my head, but I like talking to people. I like hearing about their stories, and I like thinking about the next level and how you can bring your full self into what you're doing. So whether it's my podcast or when I'm working with teachers in the school district, I think my best moments happen when I know that teacher and I know what they're doing, and I can say, hey, I know you're doing this. Have you thought about this? Because I'm not trying to remake them into something that they're not. And at this point, I'm done with compliance. So for me, it's about getting them to tap into that natural thing that they already do, the thing that they are excited about, and then showing them how can you use technology in a way that is exciting for both you and the student. But again, it's not trying to make them in my own image or trying to say, well, we pay for this, so you got to use it. Just going, oh, you are an artsy person, or you like crafts, or you are great at lecturing. Well, how can we incorporate tech in that way? And so it's not them trying to be something or not. Because I like to tell people, just let it rip. That's one of my, just let it rip. Don't think too much about it. Let it rip and just go for it.
I love that. And a shout out to Deanne, who is an amazing educator. For anybody, if you want to connect and learn about a lot of different things, Deanne was with me this past weekend. We did a webinar on Saturday afternoon about DelightX. There's a great challenge going on for students. There's still time. So you can connect with me, connect with Deanne to find out more about that. But yeah, I love hearing ideas that teachers have and bringing them to life through integrating technology. And it can be a scary thing sometimes, right? Because there's so much happening when it comes to technology and with AI, and we're hearing about screen time. And it's just everybody often thinks that the longer that you're in education, it becomes easier. And I'm like, yeah, not so sure about that. There are challenges, but I think the best part about, being an educator is that we're constantly learning. And hopefully in different schools and organizations, and whether K through 12, higher education, and even in the world of work, that there are opportunities for people to continue to learn, but also for people who are working, learning in that environment to share what they do in their classrooms, in their workspaces, and show that talent, because that is your superpower. And PD is great. It's necessary, but often it's not meaningful, relevant to certain people, or there's a lack of consistency. And I had a couple of conversations today with people who said, well, we learned about this on one day for an hour and a half, and then that was it. And we didn't know what to do with that. And I thought, well, that's why I say leverage your teacher talent. Somebody in your school, somebody in your organization knows more, a lot of different things, whether it's a strategy, they know how to use the technology, and they can come in for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Just, I call them people will say Tech Tuesdays or pop-up PD days. What's the other one? Potty PD or something. You see people post like the choice boards on there. And there are people that can speak to that. And there was a person that reached out to me years ago that said, I don't feel like I'm meant to be an educator. And I said, why? And they said, I feel like I'm too different. My personality is, not like the normal teacher. I want to do exciting things. And they gave me a lot of different reasons. And it broke my heart to hear that. And I said, but are you connecting with the kids? Yes. Are you enjoying what you're doing? They were, but they felt kind of, hesitant about it because they felt like they had to fit a certain mold. They had to be a certain person. And I said, well, I've seen you work with students. I've seen their responses to you, and you have. And now looking at our topic, you have this superpower. You have the power of connection, relatability, being transparent, and all of those things. Like, you never know what that impact is going to be on even just one person, on one student. And so that's why we're having this conversation with everybody. So the next question I have is, if we've identified, oh yes, and I'm going to do the, I got the the Wonder Woman. Everybody's always like, we got Wonder Woman. Yes, I had to get both. Okay, that's who I am. I'm not ashamed to say it, but I even wrote about Wonder Woman in one of my books. It's okay. But for educators who are listening to us, whether now or later, because we'll be sharing this, how can they use their individual superpowers? We shared what ours are. People are chiming in and sharing what theirs are, to build stronger relationships with students, colleagues, families, the school community, because especially now more than ever, I think it's really important to have that connection, that sense of community. And so, Dr. Will, if you want me to speak first, I'd be happy to, but I'm going to take a pause because there is a comment here. So we both have some wait time. So let me show. We got Deanne. I love this. So this is why I love having teacher hosts at ed camps in our district. I want to know that I can walk down the hall to get help with something, not hope I can reach out to a stranger that has come one day. Deanne, thank you for sharing that. I just had read an article in the EL magazine. I was a little bit behind in some of them, so I pulled out the pages and I read one talking about like learning walks and getting out into the hallways, observing what your colleagues are doing and the importance of that, and then also thinking about what the impact is for student learning when people do that. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a great idea, and I understand that schools have requirements. There's required mandated training, but where you can fit in, even if you have an hour or 2 hours on a PD day and you can open up for educators to share something that they're doing and you have choices. I was recently at a district in Pittsburgh here and had done a keynote, and they had breakout sessions. They had their instructional coaches doing sessions. I did a few, and it was just a big choice board. And the topics were so varied that it was really great that everybody was able to take in, something in common, but also to direct themselves to something that they really wanted to learn about. So, Dr. Will, are you ready to answer this question? Did that give you enough time?
Well, good. I think everything to me at this point goes back to who you are and standing fully into that and not trying to be anyone else, not trying to fit a mold, not trying to, put on false pretenses. Because there was a time, a while that, I felt imposter syndrome because I am not a traditional classroom teacher. I am not certified. And I, at some point, didn't even, want to, let them get out there in the streets, but because my background in education comes from leading after school programs and creating after school programs and, working with students via college and career programming. And it was that experience that has shaped me because I, believe in, talking to the whole student and getting them to really think about what they want in life. And my philosophy is about, looking at the hope gap versus the achievement gap. And I got to a point to where I said, I'm not going to hide from who I am. Yeah, I don't have the experience that you don't have, but you don't have my experience either. And I just, at this point, I am who I am. And when I'm talking to teachers or I'm talking to students, I'm not trying to hide behind things that I haven't done or qualifications that I don't have. It is what it is. Now, you like me and you don't like me. It is, I'm just going to get, I'm kind to people, but I'm not, going to be, hide or shrink myself around anything. So I think when it comes to, building relationships in general, you just have to show up as you are and be real genuine in how you relate to people, approach people, communicate, and things like that.
I knew we were friends for a reason. we we have so much in common. And as you're saying that, there's what I've said so often is wherever I am, I tell people what you see, this is how I speak to my friends, my family, my students, strangers, everybody. Like what you see is what you get. I value authenticity above all else. And I wasn't always that way. When I first started teaching, I taught very much the way that I had been taught in high school. That, it was like, don't ask personal questions. Students saying like, how was your weekend? I'm like, it was a weekend, Saturday, Sunday. That's it. Like there wasn't any interaction. But then I learned after law school and I saw the importance of having a mentor, of building those relationships and, letting students, in my case as a classroom teacher, realize like, I got F's in geometry for half of my 9th grade year. I like the failures that we had, the experiences that we had, and what an impact that is, that relatability. And for anybody that's joining, like thrive, I hear that word thrive and I smile. It's on my bracelet. And it does stand for something. For me, it's tenacity, honesty, relatability, integrity, vulnerability, and empathy. And those are characteristics and qualities that I believe that everybody should aim for, regardless of what the work is that you're doing. But as an educator, those are things, especially as things are changing with technology, with other issues coming up, that I think that we need to really work to help students to build those skills, because that's what's going to help them to be successful in the future. And so when you were saying about, like basically like what you see is like what you get, just being your true, genuine self. I think that in and of itself is a superpower because you're showing the real you. It's not like, okay, this is Rachelle at school. This is Dr. Will at home. This is Dr. Will in a classroom. And you bring whatever you have to the table. There's always room to learn and expand on what you're doing. And even if you are listening and thinking like, I don't know what I have, you have something. And maybe you need to just ask somebody like, is there something that I do it's like stands out to you? Because like for me, when somebody said that, I hadn't thought about it. And it coincided with, transitions for myself about thinking about the importance of relationships, of connections. And the first, I'm not going to say how many years of my educational career where I held off on those relationships and connecting in a larger community and network like we have available with social media and people joining in from all around the world. I did a webinar yesterday morning, and I think if there were 50 people in there at one point, I think only 3 were from the United States. Everybody else was from like Philippines, Peru, places that I probably can't even pronounce the names of the countries correctly, but all coming together to learn and to build their skills. And having that connection. And I think of all the years where I kind of kept to myself, what opportunities I withheld basically from my students. And so now that I think, yeah, connecting and relationships, that's a superpower. That's something I want to build upon. That definitely helps to create that whole classroom culture, the community. So thank you for your insights onto that. And we got other people joining in, so it's great. So if you are joining in, do us a favor and share this on your social platforms. Send a text message or an email or whatever to somebody else. There will be a recording and resources shared. And Dr. Will and I think that we're going to do this once a month, a different topic. So if you have some suggestions, send them to us. But this is one that we have been thinking about and talking about for a little bit. So it's come to fruition right now. And so next question. This is a big one. School leaders. And I tell leaders all the time, like when it comes to decision making, you need to have like other people involved in the conversation, no matter what it is. So for anybody watching, for Dr. Will and for myself, school leaders thinking about all of these things, superpowers, and the educators that they're working with. So how do you create an environment where teachers feel like they're encouraged to use and leverage, like I say, their strengths, they take risks, the authenticity of like showing up and what they're doing? How do we do that? And Dr. Will, if you want some wait time, I'm a talker. I could talk about it. Anybody joining in, give us some comments. We'll share them with everybody else. So
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh, I should have made a wheel to spin, like put my name and your name and like do the little spin and be like, I go, you go, I go, you go. No, I will say that, and Deanne mentioned this about her school and what they do and having opportunities for ed camps and hosting teacher ed camps in the district. A friend of mine here in Pittsburgh, and some people watching may know, Zian Poerio. If you go to conferences like FETC, TCEA, ISC, or anywhere in the Pittsburgh area, and you may see us and think that we are sisters. We're not. We wish we were. But she has, in the last couple of years, set up an event in her school and had some of the teachers in her school present sessions very similar to an ed camp. And her administration was all in favor of it. Like, okay, great, you have this space, what do you need? And Z is great at making prizes and having, a lot of communication. It was a fantastic event. And the other part is whenever you have, I don't know, a committee, a PD committee, for example, some schools have PD committees, and it has, representation from elementary, middle, high school, different roles in education. And you maybe use a survey or you have regular meetings and you ask, what do you need? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And how can we support that? And just, it really does, I think, and Dr. Will, you can agree or disagree with me on this. I think it really does come down to the conversation and that willingness to, and I've said this, to lean in and listen more, especially if you are an administrator, because you want to hear from the people. You want to hear, and that includes students, I think, too, to find out like what is it that they want. And that has been so amazing for me in this past year, is hearing from students when it comes to technology and AI and the screen time and all of those different things. And so I think that for me, it's, having the door open, being available and responsive is really, it has such a value. So over to you.
I would tell them to lose the script and stop expecting themselves and other people. We all know, again, everyone has a gift and everyone has their way of thinking and doing. And where one teacher could be amazing at the lecture, another teacher could just be very terrible at it. And that doesn't mean that teacher isn't a great teacher. It just means that how they teach needs to be different, it needs to look different, and they need room to do that. And then when you have them following a script because you pay for a curriculum, or in your mind, good teaching looks like X, Y, and Z, as opposed to, you know, getting to know that teacher and allowing them the freedom to breathe and to do what they do best. That's why I think the magic is going to happen.
I love how you said the magic is going to happen. And we had Bonds join us. I put that up on the screen there, and I'm encouraging some responses. So thank you for the answer. And if you are just joining us, we're talking about embracing your superpower as an educator. And if you're not an educator, that's okay. So embracing your superpower in whatever the work is and the role is that you have, and just some ideas to help you think through it and either identify it within yourself or reach out and ask somebody like, what am I good at? What am I known for? What are my skills? Because sometimes you don't recognize that. And it really does take somebody identifying that, even as a teacher to a student. Sometimes students don't realize that they have this skill set, and you have to be observant and notice it and bring that out in them. So that's what our conversation is about today. And I have maybe a few more questions. We'll see, because we are going to do this again and continue a series. So let me think. I'm going to pick this question. Vulnerability. And here's why. I got books. I lined them up. So Dr. Brene Brown wrote about vulnerability. I read the book years ago. She had a quote from Teddy Roosevelt from a speech given over 100 years ago about the man in the arena and the power of vulnerability. And for me, I thought being vulnerable was a sign of weakness. And there was a time where I was going to back out of taking any challenges. I had some things lined up. I'm like, nope, can't do it. I'm going to be terrible at it. I'm done. I'm out. Sign somebody else up. I read the book and I thought, what kind of a model do I set for students if I back out of something when I'm asking them to do things in the classroom that feel uncomfortable, that are challenging, that are taking risks, that leave them feeling vulnerable? So I read the book, and I'm going to show another book. I got two more before I'm giving you wait time, Dr. Will. Let's see here. Ryan Holiday. This one is Courage is Calling. Dr. Glenn Robbins, who is a superintendent that I had met years ago, had given me a book that is right over here. Like, I'm not kidding. I got books. He gave a copy of this book, Stillness is the Key. And reading these books, I read every book Ryan Holiday puts out, but reading that book, Stillness is the Key, gave me the mindset of it's okay to stop. Like, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to reflect and think about things, because in his books, he talks about like world leaders who are not on their phones all the time, who are present in the moment. And so reading, I've learned over the years, vulnerability. And last one, Dr. Rod Berger, The Narrative Edge, quoted about vulnerability in there, and authenticity, something that you were talking about too, Dr. Will. So a lot of reading has helped me to realize, okay, vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, and sharing stories helps people to like build their confidence and their comfort and recognize the skills that they have. So the question right now is, what role does vulnerability play? Like, what are your thoughts on vulnerability for educators, and how can that maybe help them connect and recognize like, oh yeah, I have this unique quality, characteristic, superpower, and I wasn't even aware of it?
You just have to trust yourself and lean in to, who you are and your life experiences and everything that makes you who you are. Like, I got hit this semester with a dual enrollment class, right? So, and in talking to the kids, I was telling them, I said, listen, I made the 16 on the ACT. I had the 2.3 GPA. I was on nobody's list for a college list to call me in to go. And in speaking to them, because I, have some really smart kids in there, it is, don't do like I did, do better, be better, because some, would wait and say, am I behind? I said, no, you're not behind, but you could be done, but you're waiting. And, after talking to them, so, oh, I get it now. I get it now. But it's like, I need you to not just sit there and wait. And just because you may be ahead or you may think, like, I got this, doesn't give you the time to just sit back and do nothing. Like, I really need you to understand that you have to be more proactive in what you're doing. And so, just having those conversations with students, or even for them who say, I'm not going to college. I'm okay. Got to step back and have that conversation with them. But just, being okay, again, with your story, because for a while, again, I didn't share with people that, hey, barely got out of high school. Well, 2.3, I guess that's not barely getting out. But I was not on top class for that at all. And had it not been for HBCUs admitting me into their, colleges and universities, hey, that was a gateway for me to get from there to where I am now. And so I just really think that you have to lean in and embrace everything that makes you who you are, every bit of your story, and be okay with it. Share things you can share, but don't run away from it, because those stories, those experiences did make you who you are. And in sharing what you can, whether it be a life story or something that happened, or how one experience changed your outlook on life, and thinking about how this is with you. Because with some students, they may not see the bigger picture because they've never seen it, or they've never known anyone to have that. And for me, about challenging them to think bigger, to be bigger, and to understand that if you want it, you can have it, but you got to go get it.
I love that. If you want it, you can have it, but you got to go get it. And something else that you mentioned before that I wanted to go back to too is the imposter syndrome, because I had started to do some writing. I got so many tabs. I do a lot of writing, get these ideas, and this is probably, I bet, 4 years ago, I started to work on a book that was focused on the imposter syndrome, and that's a very real thing that people experience, because you become either known for something, or people are like, oh, well, Dr. Will knows everything about this. And then you're in a position sometimes where you might not have the answer for something. And then you feel like, I'm not meeting up to this level. Well, here's the news flash. Like, nobody's an expert. I start almost everything that I say with either I don't really like to speak in public. Meanwhile, I'm standing in front of a crowd, or I'm live streaming. So I don't know how accurate that is. Or I'll say, I'm not an expert. I might not know the answer to whatever your questions are, but if you ask them, I will go and find them. And then I'm learning in the process. And again, that's the vulnerability. You're just admitting, like, I'm as prepared as I can be, but I don't know all the things. It's like when I, teaching Spanish, for example, my third language, kids will ask me how to say something in slang, and I'll be like, I don't even know what that means in English. So how am I going to translate that into, the third language? And now, and another example I give is I'll be like, you could open up the hood of a car and ask me to, like, name what's in there. I'm like, I speak English. I'm not going to know what all those things are. I might just go like carburetor. Like, that's about as good as it gets. So we are vulnerable, but it's okay. It's us learning and continuing to grow and being a model for our students, and figuring out what is that thing and I'm just making this up right now. Like, what is that thing that sets us apart from somebody else? What is that thing that makes us unique or different? Or the reason that students come to us, or the reason that colleagues turn to us, or family or friends rely on us? There is something within everybody, and some people have multiple superpowers without a doubt. But if anybody's thinking like, yeah, I'm just a language teacher, I'm just whatever your role is, stop, pause before you say the words just and just say, I'm fill in the blank with what you do, and then recognize, what is it about the work that you do that sets you apart, that brings value to other people, that there's a lot of benefits to it. So it's a fascinating thing. And there are a lot of quotes. I have tons of quotes, and I've one across on the wall right now. And I don't really want to read. Well, there's a word, and I don't want to say, but it's like, I'm going to say, you are really cool. I'm substituting some words right now. You are really cool. You have a superpower. Own your life, conquer it, and make it your own, because you can empower others when you do that. I paraphrased it a little bit, but it is an anonymous quote, but I have it on my wall as a reminder. Like, yeah, what can you do to lift others up, to empower others? Everybody has something to offer. So, and with that, Dr. Will, I'm going to turn it over to you just for, final thoughts. And for everybody that's joined in, we got some love, we got some likes, we got some viewers, we got some comments. So I'm going to let you wrap this up, because I've been the backup dancer enough. So I'm throwing it over to you. Before I do that, I'm going to not self-promote. I'm going to say, you gotta get yourselves coffee at the Edupreneur by your very own Dr. Will.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It just cannot be said enough about leaning into who you are. A lot of times, we hear these things, know your why, or go with your passion, or other, platitudes that people may throw out. But when you know who you are and know what brings you joy, and you know what comes to you easy, that is a great indication that, hey, I need to do something with this, and not be afraid to put in the work to cultivate it. We are starting to, I don't know if we're starting to, but we live in like a little microwave society where people want everything right now, as opposed to, hey, let's put a little work in. And so once you find that thing, if it means, hey, I got to get a class in, or I need to put in some reps, making videos, or writing, or editing, or doing a podcast, whatever you have to do to get those 10,000 hours in, do so. Because I think you'll live a more fulfilling life when you are working from that gift, when you are working from that thing that lights you up, as opposed to, I'm just clocking in for my check.
Yeah. Look for the joy, not just the clocking in on the check. I love it. Wow. I've had a ton of fun chatting with you and seeing some interactions, and thanks to the comments, especially Deanne sharing in the chat, and anybody else who is watching now or later, because we will share this out. It will be available on YouTube, of course, and it'll stay available on Facebook and LinkedIn, and also on Twitter. So we'll be reposting it, and you will be able to check us out probably in the next couple of weeks. We'll come up with another topic and have a conversation and have some fun. So thanks everybody for joining in. Dr. Will, as always, great talking with you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of your evening, or a happy Thursday, depending on where you're joining from. And we will catch you the next time.